thanks everybody for joining us tonight. This is an informal introduction to DMR that came about from our last TechNet. So keep it very informal, and I'll turn it over to Rob, KB5 PBM. Go ahead there, Mr. Rob.
Good evening, everybody. Name's Robert, KB5 PBM. I guess we'll start tonight. I have a slideshow. It's not my slideshow. It's been kind of a busy week, so I haven't had a chance to do a lot of, to make a slideshow, I guess that's the best way of putting it. I'm going to try and share my screen here. Let's see. Just a second here. There we go.
You should have that capability. Yeah, coming up now.
Okay, can you see?
Yes, sir. Looks good.
See it? Well, now I can't get rid of you guys. Hold on a minute.
Wait a minute, Robert. That says jpolantenna.com. Wait a minute.
Just for you.
Oh, that just doesn't do a lot for the credibility.
Well, how do I minimize? It's not letting me.
Yeah, you're in full screen right there. That looks good. You want to minimize us, you hit the minimize button with the gallery there and drop it below.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, I found this is from Michael Martin's KB9 VBR. Basically, we'll start with DMR. It's a mode that was mostly used in Europe. The United States, mostly here in the United States, we use P25 for commercial services. DMR was a European protocol, was a European mode, and the amateurs kind of took over and went with that mode because the radios were a lot cheaper than buying a Motorola P25 radio. The Chinese radios were much cheaper. So let's see. Basically, the advantage to DMR is you can put 2 time slots in a 12.5 kilohertz spectrum using a audio compression scheme. It's an AMBE +2 codec. That's what compresses the audio and sends it in a data stream across the to the repeater. And it supports small text messages, email, and GPS as well. You can do APRS over DMR. I believe someone was working on a plugin for HB Link where your radio could send the APRS information across DMR. I'm pretty sure they got that working. I was assisting him with it for a while, but kind of lost touch on it. But I believe he got it working.
And Robin, you say you can put 2 time slots on the same frequency. What does that actually mean as a layman?
So you can put 2 voice channels on a 12.5 kilohertz spectrum, 2 separate voice channels. I guess that's the best way to put it. Let's see. Basically, the spreadsheets, wide supported radios. We have the Chinese radios. Basically, you get 2 repeaters in one. You can have 2 simultaneous conversations at the same time. Different conversations, different talk groups, and we'll get into that shortly. So there's 3 modes to DMR. There's tier 1, which is normally what you'll do when you talk to a hotspot or between 2 DMR radios. That's your tier 1. Normally that's it'll be on time slot 2. And it's just bursts of data. If you hook up your DMR radio to a watt meter and you put it on peak reading, if you can, you'll see that meter fluctuating at a high speed because the radio is only transmitting 50% of the time. So you get some battery efficiency as well using DMR. Tier 2 is your repeater functionality. I'm sorry, back to tier 1. I skipped one part. You only have access to 1 time slot on tier 1. So between 2 radios or between your hotspot and your DMR radio, you're going to use time slot 2. You won't have access to time slot 1. So only one time slot on tier 1 simplex mode. Tier 2 is when you actually talk to a repeater. Now, repeater is transmitting both time slots simultaneously. Your radio will sync up to the repeater, and it will transmit either on time slot 1 or time slot 2. So you'll hear if you listen to your radio, you hear it makes this quick chirping sound. And if you have 2 radios, then you'll hear both those chirping sounds. It sounds like a straight data stream, but the repeater will be able to distinguish time slot 1 and time slot 2. So that's the advantage with using a repeater. So now you can have 2 separate conversations at the same time on a 12.5 kilohertz spectrum. And normally your repeaters will use a program called IP Site Connect, and they have made a software addition to that. Not an addition, but someone has rewrote similar to IP Site Connect called a C-Bridge. The C-Bridge replaced the Motorola IP Site Connect software. So now it's definitely affordable to have a network without a very expensive software. Tier 3, we're not going to use. That's more of a trunking style protocol. We don't see that in amateur radio. So basically, we'll deal with tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 being time slot 2 only, simplex communications. Tier 2 will be your repeater operation, and you'll have your 2 time slots available at your disposal. And this kind of shows you how on your 12.5 kilohertz spectrum, your 2 time slots, how it transmits through the air. So it's actually multiplexed, and it's 60 millisecond packet burst. And I believe on DMR, you can only talk a maximum distance of, I think it's either 80 or 100 miles, because light can only travel so fast that the repeater, you can't sync to the repeater, so your radio will be out of sync. So if there's ever any tropospheric ducting and you can't hit the repeater that you're hearing in Dallas, that's why, because it's just too far away. I believe it's 100 miles. So it's just because light can't travel that fast to get the synchronization to the repeater. Simplex will go that distance, but a repeater won't. Just kind of a extra information there. And this kind of explains your traditional 25 kc analog transmission versus your 12.5 kilohertz spectrum for the DMR signal. And that's another representation of it. Let's see. So the terms in DMR that you have to know, your DMR ID. Now your DMR ID you register with radioid.net. That's the number that they give you that associates with your call sign. The DMR ID does not ID for you on DMR. You still have to send your call sign, or you still have to identify when you're talking on DMR. The DMR ID is just there as a courtesy to the other end, saying, hey, this DMR ID or this call sign is talking, currently talking. It's just a feature. So the talk group, you have to think of a talk group as a conference room. So when you want to connect to a specific conference room, that's the talk group that will get you to that specific room. And then, of course, your time slot, depending on if you're on a repeater, a lot of these talk groups you have, like let's say on talk group 11, maybe on time slot 1, and talk group 50 maybe on time slot 2. So you have to tell your radio which time slot that talk group is associated with. So that's important. And you also have a color code. A color code is more like like a PL tone in the analog world. The color code allows you to select which repeater you want to actually communicate with. So if you're between 2 DMRs, you could technically have them on the same frequency spread apart, and you could change color codes and hit 2 different repeaters within the same area on the same frequency. So the color code is kind of like the access key to bring up the repeater, or to go into to key up the repeater. And then last is the code plug. Now there's a lot of these code plugs that are floating around that, to me, it adds complexity. If you're just starting out in DMR and you download one of these code plugs, they'll have, 200 or 300 talk groups in there, maybe a couple of hundred channels. And when you get your radio, you download the code plug, you look at your radio and you're like, oh my God, what is all this information in here? So that can be overwhelming. A lot of times on code plugs, you'll go through and you'll pick what you want, delete the other ones, the other frequencies or the channels and the talk groups, and then just use the ones that you have programmed. It's easier to operate the radio. If you travel a lot, code plugs come in handy because then you'll have the information for the repeaters, and let's say you want to access the repeaters in Houston or Dallas or San Antonio or Austin. They'll all be on that code plug, and you can put them in different zones, and we'll go over zones later on. You can have like a zone for Houston and a zone for Austin and a zone for San Antonio and a zone for Dallas. So and you'll program those code plugs accordingly. We'll go into that later on with programming the radio. And this basically just what I went over. The radioid.net, they are the group that takes your radio ID and associates it with a call sign, and they keep a database. So you can download that database, upload it to your DMR radio, and when someone keys up, when that DMR ID comes from the repeater to your node, or to your radio, it'll display their call sign, and you'll know who it is when they key up. Let's see. The talk groups, let's see. So you'll have the talk groups, you'll have different ones for like they'll have talk groups for Texas. I think there's 6 of them. You'll have talk groups for Oklahoma. All they do is they put you in a specific conference room. I guess that's the best way of putting it. And if you know somebody else that wants to meet you in a specific room or talk group, then that's how you would connect with them, is through the talk group. Let's see. I think I went over this and the color code, the code plug. Let's see. Okay, so you have you have several networks. Brandmeister is the biggest one. Brandmeister, they are mainly MMDBM users. They do allow for CC links to the DMR MARC network, but Brandmeister is mainly for MMDBM hotspot users. DMR MARC are for your Seabridge users and your Motorola radios, and I believe Hytera as well. There are some Hyteras online on the DMR MARC network. And then you also have DMR Plus. Let's see. DMR Plus, which is similar to DMR MARC. The two networks are separate, but they can have the same talk groups. So when you, like Brandmeister, they may have, I think they have right now over 1,000 talk groups. DMR MARC can have the same talk groups, but they don't interconnect with each other. Normally they don't. They're usually separate networks. So that's, I guess that's the best way of putting it.
Hey, Rob,
Yeah.
do you want to kind of maybe just mention that kind of the history of Texas DMR? I got confusing between the two DMR networks. For example,
So
the
yes,
talk group 3148 Texas statewide.
right. So DMR MARC, they have a talk group in Texas, and they specifically want it to stay in Texas, so they control who connects to, or what C bridges connect to what talk groups. And they, like 3148 is only for, like you said, Texas repeaters. Brandmeister also has a 3148, but they're a little bit more loose as far as who can connect to it. So anybody can connect to that 3148 talk group in the Brandmeister network. So you may have somebody in the Netherlands talking on a 3148 talk group, whereas with DMR MARC, pretty much only have people in Texas. I think they have a one or two in New Mexico, and one or two repeaters, and one in Oklahoma, but it's pretty much localized here within Texas. So they're two separate networks. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Anybody have any questions or? And this just goes over the radios, the cheaper, the Chinese. Go ahead. Okay. Just the cheaper radios like the Radiodity. I've got one of those, and I have a TYT. Those are two handhelds. I have a mobile CS800 that I use for DMR. And these support both DMR and analog. So you're not just because you buy one of these DMR radios, you can still do analog with a lot of these radios. So it's multi-purpose, I guess. That's the best way of putting it. This is an example of a mobile, the TYT mobile that you can purchase. And these are the MMDVM hotspots. These are a lot of people have these units for at their house, or they have them in their car. And this allows them to take a handheld and connect to the Brandmeister network. DMR Mark, you won't be able to connect with a hotspot, but the Brandmeister network will allow you to connect with an MMDVM hotspot and use their network to whatever talk group all over the world that you want to talk to. Let's see. This is some disadvantage and advantages. So, does anybody have any questions?
Rob, I was just going to make a comment. The hotspots that you're talking about give you the opportunity to have a little mini repeater, if you want to think of it that way, in your car, so that you don't have to be within range of a DMR repeater. Your radio talks to the hotspot, and then through an internet connection, makes its way back to the to a DMR network. Is that kind of an accurate description?
That's correct. Yes, thanks, Bill.
You bet.
Thanks. So your DMR Mark network is mainly going to be your Motorola repeaters. Those are your repeaters that are all around, like we have all over the state of Texas, that you can access with your DMR radio. The protocol between your radio and a hotspot and your radio to a DMR repeater, that's the same. The signal going from your radio to the repeater or the hotspot, that doesn't change. What does change is how the network is established between the repeater and the central network. The DMR Mark, like I said, they use a C bridge to do all their routing, and Brandmeister uses their own proprietary software to do all of the MMDVM traffic. Now, Brandmeister also allows for Motorola and type repeaters to be connected to their network. They've written software to where they will let you interface a repeater that's made for the C bridge will interface with Brandmeister. So there are some repeaters on Brandmeister that are not on the DMR Mark network. So I guess I shouldn't have ruled that out. So are there any other questions or? Okay. So this website here, the dmrtexas.net website, they have this is all DMR Mark network information. So here, I guess we need to look at, let's see, South Texas. So these are the repeaters that they have in South Texas that are hooked up to the DMR Mark network. Let's see, here's Corpus Christi. So in Corpus Christi, so the repeater is at 441.600 with a +5 offset. Your color code is 1, and they have talk groups 3148 on time slot 1, and they have two talk group on time slot 2. They have local, which is on time slot, time slot 2 has talk group 2, and it also has the Brandmeister 3142 on there as well. So when you program your radio, your frequency is 441.600 +5 offset, color code of 1, and then you have two talk groups you have 3 talk groups you want to program. So you have 3148, 2, and 31482. And then when you build your channels, you'll add on time slot 1, you'll have 3148, and on time slot 2, you'll have 2 and 31482. And that will cover the Corpus Christi repeater. Let me pull up another, let's see. I thought there was one, where is it? Port O'Connor. So here we have Port O'Connor. That repeater is 443.750, positive offset, plus 5 megahertz. Their color code is 9. And on time slot 1, they have talk group number 2, 8204, 31. You can see that time slot 1 has these talk groups. Time slot 2 has these talk groups. So it's up to the repeater operator that tells the Seabridge guy, hey, these are the talk groups I want access to. And then the Seabridge programs those talk groups to that repeater. The Seabridge has control over what talk groups are sent to the repeater. So I don't know.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Rob,
Go ahead.
going back to that, where are we at? Port
Which one?
O'Connor? Oh, what?
Go ahead.
Yeah. How many conversations could be going on that repeater at the same time simultaneously?
Two.
Right?
So Bill, you could be talking on 8204 K50K, and Bill W5ITZ could be on time slot 2 on 3148. And 2 separate conversations can be held at the same time. So yes, you could have two conversations simultaneously. Let's see.
Robert, go to the upper Gulf Coast Texas repeaters and go to Pasadena, which is the one that's on our sea bridge.
Okay, so this is the repeater that we have in Pasadena. It's 442.275, positive offset, color code 3. So on time slot 1, we have the Texas. This is the Texas talk group, Texas Net talk group. We have Houston Metro, which is a group that here in Houston that they use that to rag chew on. 8686 is the emergency Southeast Texas emergency group. And then they also have the Brandmeister talk group 31484 on time slot 1, or we do time slot 1. And then on time slot 2, we have talk group 2, which is for local, just stay on the repeater, on that repeater itself. Talk group 11, which goes to our analog repeaters. So that's how I think it's WJ1D. Sometimes he checks into the net on talk group 11, but he's coming through on DMR, which we have bridged over to All-Star. And then talk group 50 on time slot 2 as well for just a DMR conversation itself. So this information is what you need to program your radio. You need the frequency, the color code, and you need the talk groups, and then you need to know what time slots that those talk groups are associated with. And that's where these websites come in handy. So if you were going to go ahead.
The repeater split is the same as analog. It's 5 megahertz positive on every
Yes.
single one. I just wanted to throw that in there because they don't really note that.
Right. So like Houston Hobby, if you wanted to program that in your radio or see what talk groups they have access to, they have 3100 on time slot 1, 3148 and 8207 on time slot 2. And the PTT out to the side means that it's not active until you key it up. So you won't hear that talk group unless you actually key it up and activate it. That's what a PTT controlled. And it's usually like a 15-minute or maybe 30-minute timer. It depends on what the repeater operator or the repeater owner wants to set. He may have it he has it for 15 minutes. I guess that's what that is in parentheses. So if you don't talk on that talk group for 15 minutes, it shuts back off. And then you got to key it up again and reconnect it. So that's what a PTT talk group is. But like I said, programming your radio, you have the frequency, the color code, your talk groups, and your time slots are the 4 important variables you need to set up your radio.
Can I add a little bit more to that?
What's that?
Can I add a little bit to that?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So if you notice, guys, some of the talk groups are duplicated from repeater to repeater, repeater. Most radios, you put the talk group list in there, and then you have a drop down, and that's how you pick the talk group you want. You don't have to re-enter all the talk groups again and again and again. Once they're in the radio one time, they're accessible by every frequency that you program in, or every channel that you program in. So if that makes sense, I just thought I'd do you have a picture of a code plug, Robert?
Um,
I guess who has questions?
I do.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I want to see a code plug.
Okay. So I say, what kind of radio do you have, Phil?
I don't. I just want to know what a
Oh,
code plug looks
okay.
like.
Pull up one of the Robert, pull up a TYT or whatever the Chinese code plugs are.
It's like a disc, isn't it? A scan disc or something?
I don't have any
No.
code plugs downloaded.
All it is a program, Phil, that you write to your radio. It's just a programming software. The word code plug came from the commercial radio industry. What like say company A, they have a code plug just for that company, and everybody gets the same code plug in their radios. That's where the word code plug came from. Technically, you're just reading and writing the radio, and everybody's is customized to whatever they want. Kind of like you got VHF, UHF radios now, and you use the computer software to program it. It's the
Right.
same thing. So the word code plug is just the way you're programming the radio. It really doesn't mean anything, except that's for some reason that's what people have used. It's kind of an old word.
I know they had a link on here that had.
Yeah, but that's no good, Robert. Pull up your Connect Systems software. That'll work.
I can show my TYT.
Pull up that one. This is Connect Systems mobile radio that me and Robert have, and we can kind of show you how that works. So
So I've got a rookie question.
go ahead, Brenda.
So you said the offset is always 5. So is that
Yep.
5.0? And is it
Megahertz.
positive?
Yes,
Positive 5 megahertz.
on UHF. So most DMR repeaters are UHF. Not all, but the majority of them. I'd say 90% of them are UHF. So it's going to be a positive 5 megahertz offset. I
Thank
think
you.
think
My
there might be-
radio's UHF.
Okay,
only,
yeah.
so that'll work out great.
Yeah, most people's are. I think for you, Brenda, I think there's a Freeport repeater.
The
Uh,
DMR, the UHF DMR repeaters will hold the same properties as a regular analog repeater. They have to hold the same. They'll still have the 5 megahertz split, as the same as the analog repeater on UHF, and then
So-
VHF you would have the 6 kilohertz.
So Robert, go to that where it says DMR services. Let's show them the talk group list first.
Yeah. So here's where you program your talk groups that you want to access. Let's see. So this is where you would program all of your talk groups from this website that you pulled. Let's see where to go.
DMRtexas.net. Repeaters.
I can't see the top of my screen. Yeah,
Oh,
there we go.
right there.
Yeah.
Go to Upper Gulf Coast.
So here again,
Go,
Pasadena.
go to Pasadena. Okay.
So I want to access these talk groups, so I'd have to either write them down or I usually copy them to Notepad. So in here in my software,
Scroll down.
yeah. So here's 3148, and I've got that as Texas statewide. So I would actually put that in the software.
And most softwares won't let you duplicate a talk group. You can't put 3148 in there twice. It's only one time. So Robert, go over to a channel. So go to digital channel and just pick Pasadena 3148. Two down two down from where you were.
Gotcha.
Okay, so right there where it says contact, that's your talk group, and click that little arrow, and all the talk groups that he had in that other chart will transpose over into each channel. So once he has the channel program, he picks the talk group, and he can name it on a per channel basis different than what the actual name of the talk group is. Like he has it Pasadena 3148. That way you know you're on the Pasadena repeater and you're on talk group 3148, which is Texas statewide.
And I guess
So you have the color code is up there. Look at the top, Robert, go to the top, see the color code, which is weird. It's a number. It's not even a color, but it's a number. So we use color code 3 for the Pasadena repeater, and that was also on that reference page. And then there's your slot underneath that. So you can pick either slot 1 or slot 2. Scan list that has a drop down. You can add it to your scan list if you want. And then you have your receive frequency, your transmit frequency, and some of that stuff you won't even use. You always want to do TX admit as always. What that means is if there's a signal on that channel, you can still transmit. If you go down to the drop down, Robert, the other options you have is channel idle or color code free. So what happens is if you put it on one of them other options, half the time you won't be able to transmit because it'll be in a, the tail squelch or something. You have to wait everything to drop. And anyway, put it always on the TX admit if it has that option. Then you've got your power level, and then you got your timeout timer. Timeout timer is how long you can key at one time before you have to unkey. So that's just one channel on a DMR code plug. That's one channel. So if I want to use, so go down to Pasadena 31482. So I want to use a different talk group on Pasadena. Well, I have to program a whole nother channel. So I have to duplicate the frequency, the color code, but the time slot and the talk group will be different maybe. So it depends on what time slot that's in, but the talk group will always be different, but everything else kind of stays the same, other than your alias and your slot or talk group. Please ask questions if you're not following me. This is what we mean when it's pretty complex when you're trying to program it. And if you program it what you find, as the database says, it'll work. If you don't, it won't.
So what we can do is what you said you had the Brenda, what radio did you had the Radioddity, right?
Hello, Brenda.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I have a Radioddity.
Do you have that software, Robert?
I believe so. Yeah, I've got it pretty good.
And I'm sorry for the echo. I'm having to watch on my computer and talk on my phone.
You sound great, Brenda. No worries.
Oh wait, you know what? I have to go.
I never could get it to unmute.
Yeah, that's strange.
What do they call that Radioddity software, Robert? Thomas, where you at?
I think
Yeah,
is it G77?
you're talking about the custom firmware?
No. The Radioddity programming software. What do they call it?
Oh, the factory one?
Yeah.
I don't use the factory one. I use the OpenGD77 stuff.
Okay, so what's it called?
CPS.
Yeah, I think it starts with CPS.
Okay,
Yes, Radioddity CPS.
so hold on a second. Thomas, do you have that in your computer that you can share screen with?
Not the computer that I'm on Zoom with.
Oh, okay. Because it would really help Brenda, I guess, if we showed an example of the exact radio like she's got.
I've got it, guys.
Okay, Brenda, do you have the open software in it, or do you have factory software?
I have the factory software.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that will make a difference. The CPS
they
programming
look very
software
similar.
is different.
Do you have that, Bill?
Yes,
the
I do.
original software? Okay. So is that okay, Robert, if Bill shares his screen and goes through it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, actually, the one that I'm going to show Brian is the open software, but it looks identical.
Oh, okay. I don't have a Radiolity, guys, so I don't know anything about it.
All right, so let me figure out how I'm going to share my screen now.
Hey, David, does your radio do DMR?
No, not my ICOM, but I got a new Radiodity that I'm gonna let Bill help me program because I
Is it
have
the
all.
digital? Is it a digital one or is it just analog?
David's got a GD77 as well.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yep. So are you guys able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this is just opening the program. And if I go into the channels, you can see the list here on the side. Let's say, for example, I go into
But how would you, but okay, so you're starting from a fresh install. You need to, first you need to program your contacts before you do your channels.
well, I guess we could just do a walkthrough. The first thing you have to do is you have to go in and program your DMR ID and your call sign.
Brenda, did you get your DMR ID?
I did.
Okay.
Don't anybody steal my DMR ID here. So you enter that, and then
You'll enter your contacts.
That's your talk groups.
and here's another way to present the list so that I can see over here, I've got the names, and here are the talk group numbers. So you can see I've got worldwide, local is talk group number 2, the CRHRC talk group 11, and then 3148. It's sometimes called Lone Star, sometimes called Texas Statewide.
Oh, I see something, Bill, that we didn't talk about where it says type. Almost everything we do is going to always be group call. You can do private call, and that's where you would like call, say I wanted to call Bill direct on the repeater. I could actually put his DMR ID as a talk group and talk to him direct, but that would be considered a private call, and that's frowned upon on DMR. So just so you know, almost everything you're going to do is going to be group call.
Yeah, so for example, let's look at this 3148. And if I go to that one to make a change, I can load it right here. So this is where I have the opportunity to give that one a name. And on my radio, when I started out, this is an older code plug that I just pulled up, but it helped me to have both the name and the talk group number that was visible on my display at a given time. So that kind of helped me learn what name was associated with a specific talk group. The call ID, talk group number is 3148. And what Brian was saying here, a group call, the option is a private call, which would be user to user. All of these are going to be set up as group calls. And then I can assign it to a time slot. Now, with using the radio configuration, I can actually say I want to force it to time slot 2, but I give it a default time slot in the contact programming. So I'll create a record for every talk group that I want to access. And then once I've got all of my talk groups entered, what do you want me to show next? Channels, Rob?
What
Yeah.
was that option? Wait a minute. Go back, Bill. I've never seen that option before. It said something about look up call sign to ID. What was that? Go back into that 3148. You skipped right over it, so I just want to know what it is. Right there. What is lookup ID for call sign?
Unable to download data, please check your internet connection.
That goes out and looks up for, that's weird. Oh, you know what? I bet if that's a private call, it'll go out to the database and give you who that DMR ID is and what call sign it goes to. That's pretty cool. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to collapse my contacts and Edna DMR. So here's an example of a DMR repeater entry. My mode, I can select either analog or digital. DMR obviously is always digital. Receive frequency, transmit. There's your 5 megahertz offset. Again, I give this a name. Just set my power level, same that you can do for an analog channel. And then in a channel for the radiodity, you can assign it a trunk group list. I'll go into that in just a minute. But here's your color code. If you have a
You mean
default,
talk group list, not trunk group. Talk group.
I'm sorry, that's different industry codes I
Yeah.
slip on sometimes. Talk group list. And then the slot number goes right here. So you'll see that for this one is repeater slot 1. And then if I advance to my next channel, notice this is Edna DMR slot 1. If I advance to my next channel, this is Edna DMR slot 2. Everything is set up the same, except this channel will automatically put me on time slot 2 on this repeater.
So Bill, is that when you're just monitoring in promiscuous mode, they call it? Because you didn't pick a talk group at all.
No, that would be a radio setting, not a channel setting, Brian.
Okay, so what's your talk
He
group?
made a list with the talk group list, that CRHRC, that's where you would select from that talk group, whether it be 3148, 1150. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, so let me,
Your software's a little different than,
So this radio will let you choose it when you're on the channel?
it does.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I have a drop down over here for talk group list. That's going to expand this selection right here. So what the radiodity allows me to do is go in and create groups of different talk list. For example, I made one that I called Brandmeister. And
Holy crap.
if you see here, these are all of the talk groups that I have available on my that I have available for Brandmeister. And then if you look down this list, you'll also see these are some individual or private calls that I can select. So
if you have say me in there and I key up, will it show my call sign that I'm talking by doing that or no?
It will, but what this gives me the opportunity to do by having a private contact is, again, this is selectable on the radio. So if I'm on the Edna DMR repeater channel, I have a option on my radio where I can simply scroll through all of the talk groups that I have entered into this list. So I don't have to create, 15 different channels. I create 2 channels, time slot 1, time slot 2, and then I can scroll through any of these talk groups that are in this talk group list that I have defined here.
Well, how do you know which one's on 2 and which one's on 1 at that point?
That's where this comes.
No. If you can pick them on either one, how do you know?
well, no, his scan or his talk group. Well, yeah, you're right.
You see what I'm saying? So he
you would
could pick the wrong talk group and be on the wrong slot.
Okay,
Or-
let's look into that just a little bit right here. So if I go right here, now this is the contact list where we started out creating our talk groups.
Mhm.
Right
Oh,
here,
you can
repeater.
define it.
I can define it right here, whether it's on slot 1 or slot 2 for that specific talk group. Now, if it changes on repeater, it's going to throw me a little bit. I'm going to have to know if it's a standard or not.
Okay.
time slot for that repeater.
That radio has a lot more options.
This is a very functional radio. That's one of the reasons I've recommend to all of my buds that if you can grab a GD77, grab one.
How long does it take to actually switch those talk groups and all that on there by manually?
Actually works with the arrow keys on the number pad.
Okay.
And Thomas, you've got a lot of exposure to this also. So jump in and help fill in wherever I'm missing data.
All right, Bill, we'll do.
So we've talked about the contacts. That's where we built our talk groups. We've got channels set up for repeaters where basically we have the frequency, the color code, the slot. And then we talked about the talk group list and what the functionality is there. And then I guess the next big thing is zones. Rob, you want to go there?
Yeah, so in your configuration, what do you have on your zones? I mean, you have Edna, or it just depends how you want to administer or organize your radio. So if you
Yeah,
want
go
all of Luis and all the repeaters that are local at home, that could be a zone. And if you travel, let's say you travel to Houston, that could be another zone. Or if you go to, I don't know, if you go out to Shiner, and if there was DMR out there, that would be another zone. That's how you would organize the radio. So if you went to Houston, when you flipped to zone 2 or 3, you would know all your DMR repeaters were programmed for Houston, and you won't see that entire channel list. Basically with zones, the zone allows you to see just a specific number of repeaters that you have access to. And they don't have to be digital. They can be both analog and digital.
So what I would add to that is there's not a right way and a wrong way to build your zones. Zones is a grouping that means something to you. And this is one of the things as a DMR user that when you start playing with this, you'll probably build a code plug 7 different times before you get one that says, okay, now this makes sense and it's logical to me. And I'll give you an example because this would probably not be a standard zone configuration for most people. I built about 5 different zones here. I've got one that's Crossroads Ham Radio Club, Crossroads Ham Radio Club plus Victoria, all of my analog channels, all of my DMR channels and special modes. Now, the caveat that I'm going to give you is that with my handheld radio, it's kind of a secondary radio for me. It's not the one that I'm traveling down the road with making DMR contacts. When I'm using my DMR radio, I'm generally at home. So I'm kind of limited to the repeaters that I put into it. But these zones made sense to me. And so what I've done is the first one that I created, again, everything in the left-hand column is everything that I have available in the system. And this is channels that is showing up in the left-hand side. So, and remember, we're not exclusively talking about a DMR radio. We're talking about a dual mode radio. This is an analog and a DMR radio, and I use it for both. So my CRHRC zone is kind of my priority zone, the one I use most. So I dumped all of the Crossroads linked analog repeaters is what you'll see here on the right-hand side first. And then as we get down here, I've got my simplex channels that I use for VHF, UHF. I've got some GMRS stuff because that radio will actually do GMRS, which is kind of cool. And then I've got a crossband function channel, and I've got my all-star node channel. I don't think I've got any DMR in this. This is purely an analog zone, and that's the way I use that radio the most. My next zone is pretty much the same, but what did I add here? Oh, I do have DMR channels in here. So I've got the first 2 are the analog repeaters for Jackson County. The second 2 are DMR repeaters for Jackson County. So this is a good example of how you can mix analog and DMR channels all within one zone. And I think what I added to this particular zone, CRHRC plus Victoria, are the Victoria repeaters. So if I'm traveling into Victoria with my handheld, I can still access the Victoria repeaters while I'm there. And Victoria does have a DMR repeater as well.
So Bill, so when you go to, like, let's say you pick the CRHRC plus Victoria zone,
Mhm.
on your radio, you'll have all those channels. So it'll be channels 1 through what, 23 or 24?
Correct?
Okay, and that's what it'll display on the radio. So you'll have, that zone will have those 24 channels available to you, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, I just want to specify that. Zone is how you organize your radio.
Yeah, I got one more comment about zones. In particular, I think Robert, you said you have a TYT,
Yes.
and I have a TYT in the car, my mobile, and when the CPS software for that one, if you make your channels, you can't put your channels in whatever order you want. When you add a channel, it puts it at the bottom, and that's what you're stuck with.
Yeah. I've
But
noticed that.
yeah, so that gets annoying. You can't go through by channel. So zones becomes the way that you organize the channels for human use, if if you know what I mean.
The CSA 100 is the same way. When you add channels to a zone, it's whatever you got in there is what the order. It doesn't. Yeah, I hear you. It gets frustrating because sometimes you don't want, my simplexes are right in
Robert,
the middle.
You can drag the channels and change the order.
But it doesn't necessarily do that when you get in the car. It doesn't necessarily, it's not in that specific order.
Yeah. So Phil, to answer your question, all of this is the code plug.
Yeah, and the easy way to think of that, Phil, I was thinking about this when you asked that question. Think of the code plug as simply a file. When you have gone through and you've entered all of this information, you're going to save it into a file, kind of like a spreadsheet. And that end result, that file is actually the code plug that you transfer into the radio that gives it instructions on how to operate.
You can save this file and export it to CSV, can't you? Or
Yes.
Excel. And that
You
would be
can.
your code plug.
Yep. And if you're somebody that just loves tinkering with spreadsheets, that's one way to do it. But you don't get any of this, kind of helpful information as you go along. It's all rows and columns of data when you export it to a CSV file. So let me just run through.
Hey, Phil, we're not hearing you if you're trying to talk.
I said, okay.
Oh, there you go.
Good answer, Phil.
And also, there's also radio specific options too that you can set with the code plug, like your microphone gains and that kind of stuff too. Does that have this on the GD77?
I was looking to
Okay.
see where that was. Let me just
other
run,
options that are radio wide.
just to kind of finish out my zones. I then have a zone that is purely DMR. And you can see here, I do a little bit of traveling to Montgomery, Spring, the Woodlands area. So, those are options that I have. I'm sorry, this zone is all analog. So I pulled out all of the DMR channels, and this would be all of my DMR channels that are in that radio. So for example, if I'm traveling up to Spring, I can select my all DMR zone and then change the channel till I get to my Spring DMR slot 1, Spring DMR slot 2, right here. And what is the last one? I have special modes, simplex channels, International Space Station. That's a topic for another time, which this radio will do. UHF crossband, my MMDVM hotspot, which kind of, it may be kind of silly to talk to a hotspot from a DMR radio, but not really. That's if I'm not within range of a repeater, I use my hotspot. And then I can also use my all-star node on channel 8. So pretty functional little configuration here.
So I've done a little bit of programming with Chirp, and this looks very similar.
Your code plug programmer, CPS, code plug software. when you get familiar with one, you're going to see a lot of familiarity. Now, there's going to be some unique things, Brenda, that you'll see, especially with the DMR, that one program, one CPS program may label it a little bit differently than the other. But when you understand what that option is and what you're actually setting, you can generally go from software to software pretty easily.
For sure.
Okay.
Uh,
Channels.
Just explaining some of the terminology has really helped. Thanks.
Yep, you bet.
And I'll be the first to admit I am administratively challenged. So when it comes to Bill, you've got that would have been like an A+ I mean, mine is nothing like that. It's just I've got all the channels, and then I've got each talk group on each channel. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but it works for me. It works for me, and it works well. So
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I like to stress to anyone that's getting into DMR is, number one, understand that you're in for a little bit of a learning curve. That's where a lot of people will get frustrated and just drop out of DMR, saying, I'm not getting it, I don't understand it, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was dead serious a while ago when I said, you'll write a code plug and you will change it 7 times before you start to get happy with it and it starts to make sense to you. Things will start clicking as you kind of throw stuff together and look at it and go, this is just, it's random. And then you kind of start pulling the pieces together to get something that makes sense to you. And I think that's where it starts clicking. And you guys that have done this, is that accurate? Is that what you've seen as well?
yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely, Bill. I'm dealing with it right now with this new Yaesu. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So just hang with it. Don't get frustrated. If you do, ask for help. There's somebody out here has the same radio and the same CPS program that you're working with, and I venture to say that nobody will give a second thought to saying, hey, try this, or let's do a screen share and see if I can help you with that. Just Robert or Brian was asking about programming the radio. In this code plug software, there are different options from the top, I believe.
Another thing about this software, or if you have the same software, you can always save the file and send it to that person, and then they can edit it and see what you're talking about, and then send it back to you. And then you don't have to share a screen like what we're doing now. You can actually email that file to somebody. They can open it up in their software and make whatever changes, and then send it back, and then you can see what they've done. I mean, that's another option that you have.
Hey, Bill, it's under the setting tab, I bet.
What are you looking for?
Like, the modulation, the microphone gain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I actually don't think that in this one, Brian, you can set the different menu options.
Wow.
Go to is it under the channels? Is it an option under the channels?
Let's see.
Yeah,
Look
just
up
pick
one
a
of the
channel.
channels.
Okay, so you can do see timeout timer. I don't see like high-low power. I don't see.
Yeah, well, your power level is here.
Oh, there it
That's-
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a pretty basic
But
one.
I don't see like, do y'all have mic gain control on that radio or no?
You do, but you do that through the menu.
Through the menu.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not set in the CPS
Okay.
for this particular radio.
Yeah, some radios you can, some radios you can't. The CS800 you have to do it through the CPS.
I think you're right, Bill. You do that through the radios menu, and it's global for all the channels. I think you have a digital mic gain, and then you have a analog mic gain.
Probably, yeah.
On this radio, it is.
That's another thing about DMR, guys, is if you start listening to a lot of DMR, you're gonna hear where some people you can barely hear them. You got to turn your volume all the way up, and then other people's blast you out. It's because there's no set standard on where to set your DMR mic gain, and for some reason they've told everybody not to use AGC, which I would think would level it all out, but apparently people don't like it. So I I don't know why that is, but you're going to have people with audio all over the place. We get some of that in analog, as you guys know, but it seems to be a lot worse in DMR. Any other questions, Brenda?
Or does anybody have any questions?
I don't think so. I think you're just going to have to take some time and sit down and play with the software and, like Bill said, redo the code plug several times.
One
Um,
of one of the other things I would recommend when you're starting with the code plug is if you are local to, if you have a DMR repeater that's close to you, start building a code plug that's exclusive for talking to that repeater and get it working. And then once you're successful talking to and through that repeater, then expand out to add other repeaters in. So, to make sure that you kind of have a working knowledge of how to build a channel, how to apply your talk groups to it. And then adding other repeaters and sharing those talk groups is a little bit easier at that point, instead of trying to program 10 repeaters at one time and there's an error. Where is it?
Bill, you read my mind. I was going to tell her, are you close to West Columbia, Angleton, or Freeport?
Well, I'm in West Columbia, and I
Okay.
can reach Angleton or Freeport.
Okay. So those DMR repeaters are there then? There's one in West Columbia and Angleton and Freeport are DMR, and they're on the dmrtexas.net website under the Upper Gulf Coast. So that's going to be the most accurate information that's published. Sometimes it's not right, but most of the time it will be.
Oh, I forgot there was one in Freeport. I mean, in West Columbia. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have to give that a try.
I don't know if it's still on the air or not, but it said last updated was in 2020. So stuff does change.
Did you ever get your hotspot running, Brenda?
I did.
So the hotspot might be, I don't know, you can actually see on the hotspot if it's working or not. Whereas with the repeater, it might be a little hard to, unless you go to the net watch. But the hotspot might be, get it working on your hotspot, because then you have several talk groups here in Texas that like 31484 and 482. There's usually people monitoring those talk groups.
Hey, we're seeing Bill's screen. I was going to see if somebody could pull up a net watch for DMR to show what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys don't have any other questions on code plugs for this radio, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share.
What were
Okay.
those talk group numbers again, please?
I'm sorry, Brenda, repeat your question.
What were those, the numbers on the talk group? I think one was 31482.
Oh, for the Texas talk groups, you have 31482, 31484. Let me find the list that
And
has
3148 is
You,
statewide, but remember on Brandmeister you have a 3148, and then on the Lone Star network you have 3148, and they do not talk to each other.
there you
The
go.
only way you can access the Lone Star 3148 is through a repeater. Hotspot you can get on Brandmeister.
So
Okay,
these are all the Texas numbers right here, Brenda, if you want to do a screenshot of that one.
Rick just posted, Brenda, that Eric Schmidt can send you a code plug that's designed for Brazoria County areas. If you can see that chat.
Okay, that sounds good.
And that'll let you dissect a working one and start from there.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share here, guys.
Hey, Robert, bring up our Seabridge net watch
so maybe
and share it.
Oh, it's doing this.
Just go to the public one. Oh, well.
That's all right. We can do that watch.
So this is actually a C bridge that Robert owns, and me and him kind of help administrate it. And we've only got 4 links to it right now. That's going to change. So this gives you an idea of who's talking and what talk group they're talking. And we only carry so many talk groups. We don't have everything, of course. We have all the Brandmeister stuff for Texas, and then we have the Texas 3148 is actually the Lone Star talk group, and then we also have Brandmeister 3148. So we have access to both of them, but in order to access each one, you have a different talk group in your radio when you talk on the repeaters, but that gets to be very advanced.
Let me
but
pull up one for
Well, I'm looking at T-Mark right now. It's pretty active.
let's go to where is it?
Is system status? Oh, call watch. There it is. There it is. Call watch, peer watch. It was there. Right there.
So which one? Let's see. That's
Look at the Lone Star one.
I don't know if that has her repeater on it though. See, they don't have the talk groups populated in here. They have a name with it.
Yeah.
So you have to-
Everybody does their stuff different. I mean, it's whatever, but this tells you the user, you get the user and the radio, and then what talk group they're on, and then where it came from. And then the RSSI also is nice because if you get a real low RSSI, you'll start getting loss rates, which is in that far column. And that's when you start getting, they call it R2D2 or digital breakup, because it loses some of the packets. And there's really not, Robert, is there any type of correction at all on this or no?
There is some, but when you get
It's-
down to about 105 dB or 107 dB, you're gonna R2D2.
So there's somebody at 119 and it was 7.4 loss. But then there was somebody at 123 and no loss. So who knows?
And one of the interesting things that Robert talked about with the DMR ID, if you look at the first 2 lines up there, the 3rd column source peer alias, at the end of that line, you can see his DMR ID 315821. And that's his DMR ID. And that's how it knows that his call sign and who it is.
Well,
It
that's
kinda-
actually the repeater right there.
This
That's-
is the user.
That's the Tomball repeater, and then the user is the one to the right.
You're correct. You're correct.
So that's KD5EWF talking through the W5ZMB Tomball repeater. The reason I know that is a repeater ID is only 6 digits, whereas a user IDs is
7.
7 or 8, 7, I think.
Let me go to
Anyway, I just thought that would be interesting for everybody to see. What the heck is that
So
one?
these are the repeaters that are actually
Oh.
connected. So that's not the one. Let me go back to let me find that. Let's see, I think it's on
Gulf Coast. Oh, that one's gone.
wow,
Is that the one they took off?
I guess so.
Right.
It's I don't think he has any
That's
in,
Jason's bridge there.
I don't know if he has any in Houston.
He's got a lot. So that's Jason. If y'all know him from Ham Radio 2.0, this is his C bridge we're looking at now.
And these are all the repeaters that are currently connected to his C bridge.
And if they're yellow, that means they're going on and off.
What's Bridgecom Systems?
That's the company that resells this software,
Oh,
and basically it's advertising. This is actually what Rayfield.
No, yeah, Rayfield is
Ray-
also a reseller, but it's a guy in New York that actually owns the software.
But there's multiple resellers, and when you buy it from a reseller, their name shows up. But Bridgecom kind of helped Jason case HWB. he gave him a real discounted rate to get this, so he has to keep his name on it. Whereas ours, we changed the name on ours. So, like, see,
Bridgecom sells radios and all kinds of stuff.
yes. But see how Robert put the CRHRC logo and his daughter made that text is really awesome. Go to the homepage so they can see that. It's a really awesome logo that she created for us. So. But this is basically the interconnect system between repeaters. This is how the repeaters link up. Where, you know, All-Star and Analog, we use hub nodes. This is a control center, and there up here is all the talk groups that we have. So we're connected to Texas Gulf Coast 1 and 2. That's the 3148 and the 8207 Houston talk group. And then the rest of them are all Brandmeister. And you have to request that through the admins to get that. And then here is where we actually program what talk group is on what time slot on what repeater. So this gets really confusing. It took me and Robert a while to figure all this out because there's no manual or user help for this. You just have to kind of figure it out.
Oh no, wait. The manual to this thing is running a cab company. I'm not kidding. If you pull up the manual, it's if the cab is in this zone, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It makes not a whole lot of sense. So there's a lot of experimentation to get it to work,
Jason was able to help us quite a bit.
get us going, and then now me and Robert can do it. So Thomas,
What's
are you
up?
still there?
Yeah,
Would
I'm
you
here.
would you be interested in learning about this sea bridge?
Sure, I don't see why
Okay.
not.
I'd like to show you that. Me and Robert would.
Yeah, back when I was messing around with my hotspot and all the Brandmeister stuff, I got curious about the sea bridges for a while and did a little bit of research on it and then bailed on it, just gave up.
Well, this is already bought and paid for, so we need to use it more.
And we
can do 15, right?
yeah, we've got all these that are red that are not being used. So all those can take repeaters.
Well, we need to get busy out there, guys.
Well, we got to get the thing to where it doesn't do its shenanigans.
Yeah, that would be good.
And so I need to go back back a version on it.
Yeah, we found out, Bill, that the other guys, the other sea bridges out there, none of them are using the newest version, and they're not having the problems we're having.
Yeah, see if you go to like this
Yep.
is Seabridge in Chicago. Well, they're running the new version.
Oh,
So I don't know if they're having trouble, but like RWB, his Seabridge, I think he's running an older version. Yeah, see, he's running an older version than we are.
does that mean 1025 of 20?
No, that's just
Oh.
the version.
Okay.
Anyway, we're getting off track.
Okay, that's all I got, guys.
But this is the DMR Mark network. Is all the sea bridges. So, and the sea bridges are tied to mostly Motorola repeaters. So we have was it 80? What is the 8400 Motorola repeater out at Pasadena site, and WJ1D has I believe he also has a Motorola repeater in Wharton that's connected to us.
Phil, is that it? That's a Yaesu handheld, Phil?
Yes,
That won't do DMR.
no,
That does Fusion.
yes. It's a FT70D.
Now, hold on to that because we're working on a project we're going to have a Fusion capable repeater for local talking Fusion to Fusion.
I heard that somewhere.
So it's coming.
Stay tuned for a future TechNet.
That's good because I'm equipped.
Mhm.
Well, it's good that you're equipped.
It's good, Thomas, because you're in handheld range. So
All right, that's good. Yeah, and this one, just like with the DMR stuff, it's got a learning curve too.
and I know nothing about Fusion. I'd like to have a TechNet on Fusion, really, because I know nothing about it.
I've played with it just a little bit, and the Wires X stuff, but yeah, I'm not real keen on it either. But I'm working on it.
It sounds better.
It does sound better. I'll give it that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. P25 is the best though. It's also the most expensive.
So does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything? You know,
I guess it doesn't matter which radio you buy, huh?
no.
They're all
Just you want to read the reviews. Like some of those, like I bought a cheap TYT. I think it was $60, and it sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. It doesn't work with a repeater at all. I had a duplex hotspot over here, and it wouldn't talk to it at
It-
all. So you get what you pay for.
Stay away from the Baofeng DMRs.
Yes.
Actually, the ones that have been the best, and Thomas and Bill can attest to this, are those Radiodities.
Yeah.
They've got good DMR, and they're an American company with all Chinese equipment, but don't they have good customer service, Thomas? Or a good email service or something? I don't know.
I've never dealt with their customer
Oh.
service, but I have had good luck with the radio, both with the factory firmware and with the Open GD77 firmware. So no complaints.
Yep,
And they-
exactly the same. I've never had to use their customer service, and that's a testament to the radio in itself.
And their radios feel really good in your hand. I mean, they feel like you got something. It's not just a little cheap toy. They're actually good quality radios, in my opinion.
And
Bill,
Dave, did you say you just bought one?
Huh?
And they're discontinued. So where'd you get it off eBay?
eBay, baby. Trolled eBay for a while.
Yeah, I see
And,
there's 5 of them on there, or 3 of them on there right now for sale. Or the guy's got 4 of them, something like
well,
that.
there's a couple of guys that want a lot for them, $150, $170, but this one I got lucky. It had an upgraded firmware and everything.
So did they replace it with something?
GD88, I think.
But they don't have the better software. Is that the thing?
There are about 4 models that the open firmware will work with. The GD77 is the most popular radio. One of them is a Baofeng, which, we talked about. I'd have reservations about going to that radio, but the one thing that I would just tell you, and I shared this with David when he was looking for his, keep in mind that radio, when it was brand new, it sold for $79.95. So, there's people in eBay that know they have a radio that's getting in short supply, and they've jacked them up quite a bit. So just buy carefully if you're going to buy.
Oh yeah, everybody does that. There's some dual band Kenwood mobiles that aren't available, and they sure are price gouging those.
The other thing that I would toss out there, if you're looking for a mobile radio, an MD 9600, it's a TYT radio. That's a good little starter radio. I'm not impressed at all with the scan capability in it because it's very, very slow. But other than that, I think that's kind of typical of DMR radios in general. Some of the Chinese DMR radios, they just don't have a real fast scan system in them. But that TYT 9600 is it's a solid radio, and it's not a real expensive one if you're looking for a mobile rig or something to use on a power supply from the house.
So I'm looking at the Bridgecom website. Their stuff is from $300 to $800.
Stay away from Bridgecom, my opinion.
Why
That's
did-
probably Anytone radios, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
Anytone.
Anytone. Yep, they're all Anytone.
They have complete packages too, like starter packages
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I was looking at on there.
Be careful with Bridgecom.
And Anytone's going to be it's going to be a mid to upper range radio in cost to start with. I do have one of the Anytone 578s that it's a nice radio, but it's not one that I use as my daily driver anymore either.
Bill, which one do you talk on when you're out of town up there in Marble Falls or whatever?
GD77, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either through my hotspot. Well, I'm using it through the All-Star node now.
So is there anything comparable to the GD77 on the market now? I mean, that you would compare?
Thomas, you've been through a few different handhelds. Do you find anything that you would say would be a comparable replacement?
Nothing in the price range. I have the Anytone 878, which I can recommend, but it's way more expensive.
Yeah, they're $314.99.
But yeah, as far as something in the under $100 range that's as good as the 77, I don't think there's anything out there.
That thing was like a diamond in the rough, guys. I
Yep.
mean, honestly and truly.
I haven't tried one of the, like you all were talking about earlier, the Baofeng offerings, but I would steer clear.
So remember, guys, we got a good Hamfest coming up in March, the very first weekend in March, 1st and 2nd. And there probably will be quite a few of those handhelds running around, and they'll be grabbed up real quick. So bring some money and maybe you can find one.
Yeah, last year at that Hamfest, I think Brian sicked me on one that was sitting on a table, and it was below $100. And I already had one GD77. I just picked it up for a spare.
So and if that Hamfest, they're doing Fridays and Saturdays now, and Friday was freaking fantastic.
It
So
was.
if y'all can make it, I would highly recommend going to the Rosenberg Hamfest Friday and Saturday. I'll be there both days.
In Crossroads, we'll have a table there, guys.
Yes.
We're gonna take up the whole back wall again?
Probably so. The problem is right now, Phil, their online table purchasing system is not working.
Oh,
So, and I called the guy and he's supposed to get back with me. He hasn't yet. I can't even buy my tables, so I don't even know if they're sold or not. But yeah, I was gonna get 4 and the club's gonna get 1, so we won't have quite the whole back wall, but almost.
cool.
So I'll have 4 tables and the club will have 1, so we have 5 back there. I think there's 8 tables on that row. Anybody else want to join us? Feel free. We're on row J. But like I said, I can't get the checkout to work. Put them in the cart, but it won't let me check out.
Look forward to that. That'd be a great event.
What'd you say, Bill?
I said, I look forward to the Houston Hamfest. That's
Oh,
where
yeah.
I met Crossroads last March. Absolutely.
Yeah,
A year
that was
later already.
that was our promotion. That was our big membership
Yeah.
drive that hasn't stopped yet.
That was
No,
that was our coming out party, Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really was. That was mine and Bill's idea, and it yeah,
This is a winner. A big
it
time.
was a big winner just
Yeah.
because a lot of guys in the area didn't know we were here yet.
Well, good. We're about got to our allotted time and we can stay for whoever wants to continue on the discussion. Hopefully y'all found it useful tonight.
Definitely.
Just kind of
Definitely.
Good. Well, definitely open to doing more of these. So if you have a particular topic or you want to lead one, just let the TechNet team know. And, these are really easy to set up, obviously.
Yeah, and guys, I'd just share with you that, I hope what this does is just kind of sparks your interest and curiosity to getting some hands on. And remember, this community, this ham community is awesome about if you get your hands into it and you get stuck with it, all you have to do is holler on the radio or holler in an email, and I guarantee you somebody is going to answer that call.
Hey, can I ask a general question or maybe a
Of
question
course.
a bit off
Sure.
topic?
Certainly.
Since we talked about eBay and buying from eBay, I see some of the prices on eBay is probably almost half the prices of the US markets, but I've read different things that they don't work and stay away from them and they don't have the warranties. Any experience that you guys can share?
What are you referring to? Give me an example.
I mean, I looked at the IC 705 and they were selling for like $900 from Japan.
Those are different versions, and a
Mhm.
lot of those are going to be lower power, which I don't know how much you can get lower power in 705 because it's a QRP rig, but they also have different bands. The bands aren't the same as the US bands, and you might have to mod it and it might not be able to be modded. So, and if once you buy it, it's yours. You can't send it back, and there's basically no warranty. So the radios that are sold for the US market and they're actually FCC type accepted. I don't know about the foreign ones. And you're right, there's a lot of Japanese sellers out there now, but if you look at the fine print, they're not the exact same radio. So just be aware of what you're getting.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
I buy stuff on eBay all the time, so and a lot of their radios will have like an A at the end or a S, and that stands for something different. And like I say, some of them can be modified internally to put them on the US market and some of them cannot.
Tarek, I like to use the old adage that, you know, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If you see something that just looks like an outstanding price, check it over really, really good before you jump on it.
Yeah, no, I did some comparison. I couldn't tell, of course, I'm new to this. I couldn't tell from the descriptions and they're between the ones on Amazon or one on DX Engineering. It has the same description, the same writing, except the only difference was the location was coming out of Japan.
I think a lot
And-
of times they put the description straight from DX Engineering on their used stuff.
Yes. And you know, some of them, I'm sure there's some legit sellers that are above board, but a lot of them can copy and it's all counterfeit stuff and you get something that's not even exact. It's not even what you ordered. So
I have heard exactly what Brian was
You know-
saying, is some of that stuff is on the Japanese band plan and, you know, does not have the US bands, the same band allocation that we use here.
like the 440 band, it only goes from, I think, 420 to 430 or so. So you can't even get on the 440 band in the US with it.
Hey, Tarek, the good thing about this club is you got all the members. If you find something you like on eBay, find one of these members and email it to them and let Brian or Bill or somebody look at it and they'll tell you, yeah, it might be a good deal, or no, definitely not. They'll steer you away from it. So
Oh, awesome.
that-
Great. Thank you.
that's the benefit of the club here. They're all willing to help.
Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, we have a general email address. I think it's info@crhrc.org. Is that right, Bill?
Yep.
Or you can even email me direct if you'd like, n5tzv@crhrc.org. I have a direct email on the club. So
Awesome. Thanks.
where are you located at, Tarek?
I'm in Greatwood, Sugarland.
Oh, Sugarland. Okay.
Glad to have all the new folks that joined us tonight. That was
You bet.
awesome.
That's exciting.
Really is. Rob, you have any last parting words there, sir? Is your idea, and based on the TechNet and Brenda's input, Rob, anything for the group?
I appreciate everybody showing up and listening. I hope it was helpful, and thanks to Bill and Brian. You guys dug me out there. Thanks for helping me.
Yeah, you did.
You were doing fine, sir.
You
It's
did.
okay. I tend to get real excited, so sometimes I got to mute myself.
I'm not a good public speaker, so that's it's nerve-wracking for me. So
You did great, Rob.
Did great.
Everybody, and we recorded this tonight. We'll
wonderful.
put it up on the TechNet website at Crossroads here in the next week or so. So in case you have some friends want to go through it. Appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you
All
all.
the best. Have a good rest.
Thank
See y'all
y'all.
on see y'all on the Thursday night net coming up
Yes.
tomorrow.
See y'all tomorrow night. Don't forget the
right.
net.
All right.
Yes, sir.
73. everybody.
Good.
Thanks, Bill.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Later, everybody.
Good night.
Well, see everybody later.
Thomas, you still hear me?
Yeah, I still hear you.
What did you pay for your radio?
This one here, I can finally show it to you. I've unblurred my background.
Yeah, it's a cool looking radio.
Yeah, they're on sale right now for there's a manufacturer's rebate $40, so you can get them for $429. I think they are.
What is that, Thomas?
It's
What
the
radio?
Yaesu FT5D.
Oh, okay.
And that'll do satellite and everything, duplex, everything.
It's not full duplex. It's
No?
it's dual receive, but it's not full duplex. You can't receive while you're transmitting.
Oh,
I don't think there's anything that can do that right now.
yeah,
That's-
probably not.
Not discontinued.
The only one, the new Kenwood that's supposedly coming out will, but it's high dollar.
It's already out, and it's like $750.
Yeah. Oh, it is available. I saw where it said coming soon. A 75.
Yeah, I saw it on Gigaparts has them for sale already.
Yeah, that one right there, Phil. That's going to be a full duplex handheld, I believe. But you're talking
you
about
go.
almost $800.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make sure I'm not lying to you. I think I saw that they were selling it already.
Does that Kenwood do DMR?
No, I think it does D-Star.
What? Oh, okay.
APR is D-Star,
Okay. Well, they should have made it with DMR and they'd probably sell a lot more of them.
right? Why not?
Because that's the biggest digital mode that has taken over, that and Fusion. So basically that's your two now. D-Star's kind of fallen off, way off, because it's old technology and they never updated it. So I know all the repeaters in Houston that were D-Star are no more. They're all DMR now.
So Fusion
Brian,
taking
maybe
off?
they're not fully out. It says taking pre-orders.
Okay,
for,
that's what I thought I saw.
yeah,
Kenwood's having
$749.95.
Kenwood's having some problems, guys. They're in a financial rut right now. So, which really sucks, but that's why there's no ham stuff new with Kenwood.
I don't know they're gonna dig out of a rut selling a HT for almost $800.
Right? But I mean, they don't even have their mobiles in stock anymore. There is nothing. The only thing they've got now is the 990, the 890, and the 590, the HF radios, and that's it. And those are their high end stuff.
Yeah, if it wasn't so much, well, if it wasn't so much money and wasn't so much like a brick, I might have picked one up.
Like a brick.
That's exactly what it looks like. It's just a big
Yeah.
square brick that you got to carry around. You can't put it in
Well,
your
you
pocket.
know, Scott has one of those, and I don't like the audio. It's kind of got like some kind of FM AGC on it, and it cuts his audio back. And we have tried every setting in the world. He had the 74, I think, the current model before this one, and yeah, it's horrible. It receives great, but transmitting it just doesn't sound that good.